Hello everybody. So tonight we're going to talk about shapes, and we're also going to talk a little bit about fairies, because I wanted to update you a little bit on the fairy garden that I've talked about a long time ago in one of the videos. You know, there are so many different shapes and they're in our lives all around us. We don't even think about it. So we're going to hear about enough shapes tonight so that when somebody says, hey, you're in really good shape, I think you should say, which one? Just to see what they say. So we already have some you're going to recognize right away, of course. We've got our circle. And we have this we're going to talk about. This looks like a square, but we're going to talk a little bit about this one. This one's actually kind of a funny sounding one. And we've got eggs are kind of oval shaped, so we've got that. And then this bracelet that I think I've held up before, the parts of that are oval shaped. And then in front, we've got some circles and some squares. We have one of Gracie's balls, which is a sphere. And we have a cupcake with a lot of circles stacked. And we have a cylinder, which is what a paper towel holder and paper towels would be. So we have lots of different shapes. And shapes are fun to identify. And it's also fun to see what you can do with them. So this is called the shape of things. Triangle, rectangle, circle, and square. I can see those shapes most everywhere. Triangle, rectangle, circle, and square. You can see them too if you look over there. Rhombus, pentagon, parallelogram. Are you a fan of these? I know I am. Rhombus, pentagon, parallelogram. I like them even better than bread with jam. Oval, diamond, octagon, kite. I'm pretty sure that these shapes do not bite. Oval, diamond, octagon, kite, but if they do, it'll be all right. Hexagon, cylinder, cube, and sphere. If you would like to visit them, come right here. Hexagon, cylinder, cube, and sphere. They seem a bit tough, but no need to fear. I bet you figured out we're at the Big Shape Zoo. I'd like to look around, and I bet you'd like it too. If these aren't enough, we can wander next door. I hear that in that building, they have even more. So we have the usual shapes. In fact, let me show you some that we were just talking about. Oops. Okay, so of course you have the triangle with the three sides, rectangle, circle, like the rainbows, and square, even sides. Of a rhombus, I just thought he was funny looking, so that's a rhombus, which is a shape that looks a lot like other shapes, actually, that I mentioned. Okay, there's a pentagon, 5 sides. Parallelogram, equal sides. There's an oval, like the egg and the bracelet. There's a diamond. There's an octagon. There's a kite. And that actually is a shape. It looks like a kite, but it's also a shape. There's a hexagon, 6 sides. And there's your cylinder. And there's your cube, like a block. And there's your sphere, like Gracie's ball. I thought you might like to hear about some shapes that are a little bit different too. I had never heard of, I'd heard of the Mobius strip before, so let's talk about the Mobius strip. And that's one that if you talk about, people will say, wow, you sound really smart. But you take it and fold it like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and tape it. Okay. So if I follow with my finger or a marker, I'm going to end up going all the way around both sides of this. And that's what makes the Mobius strip kind of fun to work with. And then I had never heard of this one, but a squircle, which is a combination of a square and a circle. So if I take a square like that and then just kind of smooth off the edges like so. I'm probably smoothing a little too much. To clean up my mess when I'm done. Okay, I did not do a good job. But that is a squircle, and this is really a better example of one. Where it's rounded, the corners are rounded. So I thought that was a funny one. So you can say, okay, I know what a squircle is. So those are shapes, and they are all around us. We see them every day, everywhere. Okay, I've got a short one here about fairies and fairy lights, and what you see in front here are fairy lights because they're so tiny. I see a twinkling in my garden like a firefly might wink, but when I look more closely, it flies off before I blink. Perhaps it's just the moonlight shining brightly overhead, or could it be a fairy dancing close to me instead? I'd like to think a fairy liked my little garden house and moved in very happily and quiet as a mouse. I'll probably never know for sure since fairies are so small. In fact, if not for dancing light, I'd not have known at all. So I hope there are fairies living in my fairy garden. I'd like to think there are, and let me just show you a few quick pictures of what my fairy garden looks like. Hang on a second here. Okay. This is my fairy garden. Oops. Looking at the whole thing. My iPad's getting away from me. Okay. It says welcome friends in front. And there are a lot of houses. There's a playground for the little fairies. Fairies welcome, the sign says. There's one of my fairy houses with a ladder so they can climb up. I know fairies can fly, but sometimes they might want to walk. You just never know. Okay, there's another fairy house. There's a baby. Look at that fairy. I discovered it in my flower. And there's a house, a couple of houses actually, in among the flowers. These are tiny. And there's another house. So I'm hoping that my fairy garden is something that the fairies are going to want to come and live in. I would like to think there are fairies living there. So remember that shapes are all around you. When you learn to identify them, that's a good thing to do for later in school when you're doing math. And look for fairies because you just never know. I want to believe that they're flying around and that they're in my own fairy garden. So 1, 4, 3, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.